All right, I hope you had an amazing holiday season. I know I did, but we are now we're right on the edge of 2026, and we have delistings now at a decade high, 105 housing markets posting depreciation, and at the same time, we have Zillow, Redfin, CoreLogic, Fannie Mae, MBA, you name it, predicting transactions and prices to accelerate in 2026. How can both those things be true at the same time? And what are the big factors that are going to really save us or help us in 2026?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is your savior speaking. Please fasten your seatbelts, return your tray tables to their locked and upright positions, and prepare for landing.
Hey everyone, this is Rayce Robinson, your favorite Florida mortgage broker, and we're going to look at what I think the landing is going to be like in 2026. But let's look at some of these articles that I think are really kind of showing what the market feels like for those that are part of it. So right now, this is an article from Resi Club talking about housing market delistings tick up to a decade high. Looking ahead, the outstanding question is how many of these delistings will return to the housing market in spring of 2026? Because a lot of people will delist their properties when things slow down at the end of the year, January, February, which I always think is a good time as a buyer to be in the market because there can be less competition. But you see prices tend to fall a little more this time of the year because a lot of times there's just less activity. And they're actually showing a chart here as US delistings as a share of all inventory hit a decade high, and we're at 5.5%. But you got to look at these things in context. I mean, in general, we run about 4.5 to 5% as a normal. So we are up 0.5% over what I think is kind of the normal. Obviously, in 2020 and 2021, it was a lot lower. And then when we look at delistings as kind of a share of all inventory, and we zoom in here to Orlando, they're showing delistings as 6.5% of our market here. So actually saying it's a little higher here in Orlando. But again, it just makes sense. You know, I had an investment property a few years back, right after things had gotten so crazy and we weren't able to sell it. We took it off the market, took it off for a little while, put it back on, and we're able to sell it. It's just part of what people do when the market feels slower. The real question is this matter for 2026? And so let's look at the homeowners that have mortgages. Are we having a lot of foreclosures and people going underwater? And this shows the share of mortgages that are underwater inches up to 1.6%, still far below 23% seen in 2009. And that just puts in perspective that there really isn't a major issue with current homeowners having issues keeping up on their mortgage. Now, I did think this was interesting, and I would have not guessed this. This is, 2021 all the way to 2025, this green, talking about of that 1.6%, the share of U.S. mortgages with negative equity, and 33% of those are coming from VA loans, which I thought there would be a lot more FHA than VA. I will tell you, VA is sometimes for highly qualified veterans a lot easier to push ratios and things like that, but that surprises me because those people are highly qualified. Another thing that's going to really dictate the market, obviously, are rates. I mean, if rates were 1% now, we would be trying to keep up with, the inventory we have would be flying off the shelf, right? That is the cost of housing. So right now in the next meeting here on December 10th, there's back to an 86.4% chance that the market is now pricing in a cut in December. And it wasn't that long ago, this was 60%. And then as far as interest rates go, you can see we've kind of been bouncing around in the 6.375 to 6.25% range for a while. Remember, these are going to be for your most highly qualified buyers that are going to get these rates, but it's just important to look at the trend. And right now, that is about where most buyers are going to be, between 6.5 and 6.25, depending on credit score, getting a down payment. Now, for me, what this really matters as far as rates go is if we can get in that 5.5 to 6% range. We have seen that mortgage applications spike. And we are, in my opinion, going to hit that number, at least 6% by the middle of next year. And I would actually say closer to 5.5% by the middle of next year. Now, there's a lot, like Fannie Mae is predicting rates to be about where they're at now throughout the end, to the end of next year, but their predictions haven't been that great. And so we shall see. Nobody knows for sure. I predicted rates to end at 6.25, I believe, by the end of the year, and I actually was pretty darn close. So we'll see what happens next year. But you've got the Fed chair, Jerome Powell, leaving likely in the summer. You have the Fed likely to spin up printing money again. And you have a president that's likely to put a Fed chair that is more likely to cut rates. They're even talking about doing a 50-year mortgage. All of those things to make housing less expensive. Now, will that be a good thing? I mean, we could argue that, because if you goose the housing market, you goose home prices, and we really would like to see, in a weird way, housing prices at least kind of stay super steady, and we don't want to see a big decline. We also want to see a big increase, and that would probably be my biggest concern if rates fall too fast too soon. And then these are the 105 housing markets with year-over-year home price declines. And it's worth looking at for just a second, because housing has declined, but not to the degree that a lot of people would think. So number one in the market in the United States is Punta Gorda, and it's just over 12%. It's called 13%, 13.26% to be exact. So this is the market with the biggest decline. Going to Orlando here, I found it here a second. There it is, 4.55%. And then I was curious, in our market, very, very local market here, this is from the October reading, so this is going back to September. This was showing year over year, or month over month, 483 to 482, right? Not a big change. And then on October of 2024, going 388 to 380. So again, that's median price going down. And that's in line with kind of the national statistics. So what's going to happen from here? If you're a real estate agent and you've made it this far, you're likely to be in a market that rates are going to be trickling down, transactions are going to be trickling up, and buyers are going to get more and more into the market. And usually, really, like, this is the sweet spot, right? As more and more buyers get in the market, it gets more competitive. In certain areas like Oviedo, where I'm at, it's already kind of competitive for the best price houses that are really, really nice. So what would I do with this information is make sure that you know what your plan is for next year. If business is likely to increase and there's going to be more buyers, you're going to be brushing up on buyer skills and buyer presentations and buyer commissions, and all that kind of stuff is going to be more important next year. Having a lender that can help you close more deals, I'd love to apply for that position. So whatever the case is, I'm here. Reach out to me if you have any questions. You have a deal that's falling apart, or if you're a buyer, you're not sure, when is the good time to buy? What are the special programs? Reach out to me. I'd love to go over all that and more. And as the information moves the market, we're going to cover it right here, because there's a lot to play out between now and the end of the year. And then we're going to get into the first quarter of 2026, where I think we're going to see the market slowly accelerate, for sure, in the number of transactions. Hey, everyone, this is Rayce Robinson, your favorite Florida mortgage broker. Have a great day, a great week, and I'll talk to you soon.